Hello, hello. We are back.
We're back.
Episode 2.
A jar of salsa for the casual academic.
Thank you. I almost forgot our title. It's been so long. So Catherine and I are here with Richonda. We are going to get started. We have a special item today, and it is the... Oh, Catherine, do you want to take it?
Yes. This is Tostitos medium, salsa con queso. So it's a little cheesy today. It says it's made with real cheese. Real is underlined. There's also some pictures of vegetables on the jar.
Oh, we gotta love the vegetables.
That's my favorite part. The pictures of, we have a tomato, a jalapeno pepper, another pepper.
Well, that's a red pepper.
That's a red pepper. And then another jalapeno pepper. And then, let's see, we always like to get into the ingredients.
You can pick this up, buddy.
Okay, yeah. It's not connected to the desk.
It's like 0.25.
Okay, so we have water, skim milk, Monterey Jack cheese, vegetable oil, modified cornstarch, diced tomatoes in tomato juice, jalapeno peppers, chili peppers, red bell peppers, maltodextrin, which it specifies is made from corn, and 2% or less of the following: salt, cheddar cheese, natural flavors, sodium hexametaphosphate, monosodium glutamate, datum, sodium phosphate, spice, and artificial color, yellow 5 and yellow 6.
Gotta love that yellow 5.
So this is, there's a lot in this one. More than we're used to.
You know what I just realized?
What?
We didn't open it.
We did not. That's supposed to be our thing.
Alright, so we'll open it now. Oh man, alright. I just kicked you, I'm so sorry.
It's stubborn. Yeah.
There it is.
There's that jar of salsa sound.
There it is.
Oh, wafting.
No.
What do you get, Richonda?
It's very cheesy.
It's very cheesy.
I don't know, some peppers? Are there some peppers in there?
There's plenty of
there
peppers.
I'm getting some peppers.
Apparently, like 2 or 3 kinds.
Okay, so who's gonna... Shall we dive in? Oh, but Catherine, But wait, there's more.
Oh,
We have new chips.
Different chips, okay. We have Santitas chips. Tortillas triangulos.
Ooh.
Tortilla triangles. You would never guess I minored in Spanish. Yeah, they are different chips. Their ingredients are corn, vegetable oil, and salt. I like that. Very
3
simple.
ingredients.
Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Okay.
So, do we want to... Rashonda, you're our guest.
Okay. I think last time I dug in and I, broke a chip.
You don't want to get shipwrecked.
Shipwrecked.
First rule on the show, you can't get shipwrecked.
Take a deep breath.
Go for it.
We're here for you.
That was a masterful dip.
Oh, yeah.
That's it?
Oh. It's very creamy.
Okay.
The salt comes through
Of
on the chip.
Okay.
Wait. And with a few, bites, you start to feel a little bit of the heat, but it's a medium, so it's not, too wild or
A
anything
mild
like that.
heat wave.
Very, very, very light.
Catherine, you want to give it a shot?
Right, let's give it a shot. Let's see. I need to pick out a good chip.
You always want to make sure that you have a good chip.
A sturdy chip.
Yeah,
Sturdy
because
chip.
you know what it is? I do love these kinds of chips, but you never go wrong with the scoops. Because everything is a scoop of something.
Except for when you get the half scoop and the chip is broken. That's the one.
Then you got problems.
Yeah. Now that's a chip wreck.
I'm going to give it a shot too. See, this is a good one. It's nice and curved.
Yeah.
I feel like this will be...
Folded chips are the best.
All right, so I do get the creaminess. There's a very nice
The
texture,
is just...
a very nice mouthfeel. The first thing I actually tasted was pepper, the pepper flavor, green pepper or red pepper. I guess it's a red pepper.
I agree.
And then the cheese came after it.
I agree. Peppers first.
Yep. Going in strong with the pepper. Nice creamy texture.
But wait a minute, you said mouthfeel, and I just started watching, again, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Is that where you got that from?
No.
Oh my god, there's an episode, real quick, he goes into pizza, and he has like a pizza blog. One of the guys on the show, I forget his name, and he like rates them all, and he goes, one of the things that he rates is mouthfeel on his pizza blog. All right, so as we get started, I'm going to introduce you because your mouth is full right now. So I'm going to buy you some time here. So Catherine and I have our friend, our colleague, our wonderful person of the month of
Our
January,
poet.
our
Woo!
poet, Richonda. Richonda is a master's student at Kane University. She works in the Writing Center, and this is her last semester
Yes, last semester.
of grad school, and she is going to talk to
Home
us
stretch.
the home stretch.
Yep.
Sliding in. Her experience with language and poetry. So if you wouldn't mind,
What was that? Poetry?
poetry,
Poetry.
like how I say theater,
Okay.
the poetry. So if you wouldn't mind giving us, well, we kind of went over who you are, but if you want to talk about what you do and, excuse me, how your interest developed into poetry.
Yeah. I feel like I was always writing from a very young age, so I didn't really have a strong grasp or anything on poetry, but I would just write by myself, and that's kind of how my love first started.
Mm.
And after that, it was mostly just brought to fruition with any of the teachers that I had when I was in school. I feel like alongside of, just the academia side of everything and just, kind of having that structure there, I felt like I always had somewhat of a good balance, and maybe not so many of the traumatic experiences that students will feel when they can't be creative or they can't express themselves. So I feel like I had somewhat of a good balance where I was able to express myself in my younger years, and I had teachers who supported that. So that love just kind of grew from there. I actually haven't been into it my entire life, I would say, because as the years progressed, there was sort of a hiatus, I guess you can say, with poetry. And I wasn't writing as much, and my creativity started to slip, and I didn't really feel as connected to it. But I so desperately wanted to get back into it, and I think that that's where my love for it kind of deepened when I started this graduate program in 2016, because I felt a loss of self, and I really felt like I needed to get back to who I was. And anytime I think about my identity or what I identify with, I specifically go to words. I go to language. I go to books. I go to poetry. And so I'm a poem.
You are.
Yeah.
That's a mind blower.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about what your graduate work is in regards to poetry?
Yes. I had no idea what I was going to do when I came in, but by the end of, I believe it was the first semester. Was it the first semester that me and you took E-Lit, Catherine? Or was
Yes.
that the end of the first year?
That was the first semester.
Okay, so yeah, the first semester, I kind of dove a little bit more into it because we had electronic literature, introduction to electronic lit, and my E-Lit project ended up being a simple hypertext digital.
It was not simple.
Yeah, I don't remember
amazing.
I was there when you presented it. I don't remember being simple either.
Well, I'm simple in the sense that it was just hypertext, and that's one of
Okay.
the basic forms of electronic literature. One of the most basic forms is hypertext. So when I say simple, that's what I meant. But the topic essentially was very deep. It was very complex, and it was kind of like layered in a sense, if you will. I had a lot of different things going on because I dealt with a lot of taxing topics and ideas and concepts. So things like human trafficking or child slavery. So definitely, it was up there. There's levels. There was levels.
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, but that kind of allowed me to expand my ideas for what I was going to come out with my thesis. So my thesis is actually inspired by that project, where I am incorporating my poetry now. And what I've come into is a sort of feeling where I feel like I can't necessarily relay something to another person with as much authority if I haven't experienced it for myself. And so I really wanted to focus on myself. And so I'm doing an autoethnography where I look at my own creative process. And I kind of look at things like race and gender and how heavily, how they impact my writing process, and just sort of the things that I go through when I write. And hopefully it can help other scholars, it can help other professors and teachers and students going through anything like that. If they're feeling lost, just something to kind of like identify with, pretty much. There's a lot of just things with identity going on, as well, how I identify, how I construct my identity. And then we're in 2018, so I feel like the conversation wouldn't be done until you brought in the idea of digital tools and digital media and how, the internet has impacted that process. Whether it's positive or whether it's negative or whether you're just kind of like in the middle, it doesn't really hurt or help. I feel like it's still, an important thing to talk about. And I'm really glad that I'm able to do something that I'm passionate about. That was one of my main fears. I thought that I was going to have this rigid structure with my thesis work, and it doesn't seem to be like it's turning out that way at all. I feel like I have a lot of creative control, and that's what I'm most happy about.
That's good. That sounds like a great project.
Kind of sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, but it kind of sounds like you're using the idea of, I lost my train of thought. Shoot. You're using the digital tool and empathy to kind of relate to others' identities?
Well, not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily say like maybe relate to others' identities, but maybe help them to kind of break down, for themselves, if they're experiencing like or struggling with that, with their own identity, or how it's because I'm kind of looking at the way that my own identity is constructed, and what impacts me and what affects me, and especially like just kind of relaying that to writing. So more so just being able to, still using the things that you were saying, like the digital tools and, and empathy, more so maybe just to connect with others and to be a little bit more relatable.
Okay.
Sorry. Are there any other poets or theorists that have really influenced your work?
Absolutely.
You wouldn't be in a master's program if there weren't.
Oh man, I have this stack of books here that you guys can see. But
let me get a picture for the Twitter account.
But it definitely goes beyond this. Oh wait, no, they have to be in like order.
Put them in order.
I'm so weird about that. Do you guys ever do that? Where it's like you have to have the spines and like, because like if there's a tall book next to like a really small like short book, it bothers me. Am I the only one?
No, I embrace the chaos. But you arrange them how you want, and I will take a picture for our Twitter thing. But please keep going. If you want to talk while you sort them, that would be great.
I forgot the question. What did you ask me, Kat?
About those books.
Poets and theorists. Yes. People who have kind of guided your work.
Okay, so definitely it goes beyond this stack here. But I would say in my younger years, I really feel like I had teachers and instructors that really encouraged me to kind of get out of that box. I feel like I've heard a lot from my professors, even here, since I've, been to college of, it's not all about, the old white men who write those, who write all the classic literature or anything like that. So I feel like I've really had mentors and advisors and instructors that have been good about introducing me to things other than that. So I feel like it's very diverse. People like Toni Morrison, authors like Toni Morrison, going into even plays, like playwrights like August Wilson or Naira Waheed. She's a contemporary poet with her collection Salt. That was one of the first contemporary collections that I had bought for myself, and I love her so much. Her stuff, she's just so raw, and it really does pack a punch. she can say so much with so little. And her images are just out of this world. So I really do appreciate her. Looking at people like Martina Spada or Maya Angelou, like, classics. I even have Ursa Daly Ward here. I want to say Upile Chizala I have here. That's that Soft Magic here at the bottom. I love the cover. It's just orange.
Oh, it's just orange.
Yeah, I love it. And a lot of these people now are, a lot of these contemporary poets are really inspiring a lot of the current work that I'm doing and what I'm writing for my thesis. So, yeah.
Now, you mentioned a lot about professors and teachers when you were younger, I guess educators that have been important in your life and really just important to your development of your own voice and your love of poetry. What would you say to any educators that may be listening? I know we're kind of getting into Teacher's Corner kind of categories here.
That's good. That's all good.
It's not quite. It's a little different.
It is different. You're right. I'm going to give you that. I'm tweeting for us, so I'm going to let you take this one.
Educators, what would you say to them to help inspire the same kind of love and voice development in, students that they see might be aspiring poets?
Well, actually, I think that it's important to note the class that we just got out of today, the language of racial and ethnic identity, with Professor Jones. And it's kind of a continuation of that same conversation that we had in class. And I think it's the idea of being able to accept and embrace a lot of different voices, a lot of different languages. And I know more so the conversation in class steered more into, dialects and, different languages, but and I'm a native speaker of English. So, but I think it's that whole idea of just encouraging students and lifting them up and maybe not scolding them as much of saying, no, you can't write like that, or no, you can't do that. I had teachers who, especially, in high school, I had teachers who would maybe require something for, the more structured assignments, but would take the time on their own to actually read my creative work, and they would guide me. And I actually got the poetry club started back up with my high school AP English teacher, Mrs. Cirillo. I absolutely love her. She is such an inspiration to me, and she was one of the biggest people that I'll go back to that really changed my life and really kind of helped me to believe in myself. And so I think that was one of the most important things because, growing up and going through those awful teenage years where you don't know who you are and you're not sure if you're competent enough, I had, teachers like her who believed so much in me at times where I didn't believe in myself. And I think that was the biggest catalyst for that. It was just like having people see your potential. And like, it's almost like, when you're taking, somebody pushes you in front of a mirror and asks you to look at yourself, and it's just like, no, that is me. I am this. And for the longest time, I wouldn't even say I'm a writer. I wouldn't say I'm a poet. And I said it tonight in class. I was just like, I'm a poet. I do this, and I think that I'm more accepting of that. I feel like we all have a little bit of imposter syndrome in us, definitely. But, yeah, it was all love, and it was coming from a genuine place, and I genuinely felt that. And so, I feel like I've carried that with me, and it's actually, been a big help with creating that tough skin that I feel like you need when you do get sometimes that backlash from people or people who would want to put you down or make you feel, a little bit differently in your abilities. She really just helped me kind of like stay strong through that. And knowing that, no, you are good enough. And yeah.
Well, shout out to Mrs. Cirillo, right?
Yeah,
the name
Cirillo.
right?
Yeah.
Using all the names on the show.
Awesome.
So I guess maybe this, I wanna argue the controversy could also be in what I was thinking for Teacher's Corner, because I think a lot of the controversy with poetry, especially with students, is that it's very difficult to understand. And I know myself, being a professor of writing, I'm very much a student of poetry. It was like the one type of writing that I would try to write but never understand. And I was actually just having this conversation with Lisa today, and I was like, please don't ever let me teach a poetry class, because I will never be able to, like if the poem is about life, I'll definitely say it's about death. Like, I think I said to her, the poem could be about, like, I'll say, this is about making a sandwich. I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
And I was like, but in reality, it's about the struggle of getting over the fact that your dog died. And I'm like, I feel like I still see sandwich here somewhere. Like, I can't, like, I'm so far off from understanding it. And I feel like the big controversy with poetry and why people don't like it is because they might not get it. And so pardon my ignorance in this, but as a student, and for teachers who teach it and students who want to learn it like myself, what do you think people can do to get on the same page?
That's a great question.
That's why I asked it.
Oh, excuse me.
Because I'm not really one to necessarily believe that there's any kind of one way or there's a right way to do anything and everybody has to be sort of in the same lane. I feel like that's where a lot of that freedom comes from in poetry, because you don't necessarily have to be. But I think that to get students thinking about being honest with themselves, because sometimes and especially when it goes into writing poetry for themselves, even if you don't want people to see it, they don't even want to write it for themselves. They're just like, I can't. And
I think can't definitely is part of the problem.
Yeah, I definitely don't ever, and I used to be like this, but I definitely don't ever like to hear that, like, oh, I can't. It's like, no, you can, because who knows you better than you?
Right.
And so I think it has a lot to do with getting them to be honest with themselves. It has a lot to do with imagery, because to me, what is poetry without imagery? A lot of people will come to me. They're like, okay, I don't like confessional poetry or something like that, because it's just like, oh, that reads just like a journal.
Okay.
But I see a lot of contemporary poets kind of going more in that route. So I picked up, while you were actually in the process of asking me the question, I picked up My Mother Was a Freedom Fighter by AJOS, and her first section in the poetry collection is called Inner City Chants, and city in the middle is encased in parentheses. And on that page, on the bottom left-hand corner, 3 lines, something very simple, but it tells what so many of us could be thinking, those kind of things that you think or or you tell yourself that you never really kind of bring to fruition in your real life or in real life conversation. But I feel like so many people have had some sort of emotion that has been tied to this, or some sort of experience that has been tied to this. And it's like when you read it, it's like, oh, it takes you back. And it's only 3 lines. And she says, "We are the stories we tell ourselves." And I was just like, oh, wow. I kind of wanted to drop the book and clap. Just like, yeah,
wow.
woohoo, yeah.
It is profound.
Yeah. But it's a lot, and you'll see that with contemporary poets today. It's just a lot of that. And it's just true. It's just sticking to your truth, and it's just telling the truth. It's being honest with yourself. And I think that if you can be honest with yourself and allow yourself to open up, because so many students just kind of hold back. They're just like, oh, well, no, I don't want to write about that, or, because it's a touchy subject or something. Sometimes some of the worst things that go on in your life make the best poems.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how, recording artists or vocalists, they go in and they turn this song into seemingly some magic potion that just, it's just like, what in the world is this? I love this artist, or I love this song, but if it wasn't for them bearing their heart and soul out into a piece of metal, you wouldn't have that. If it wasn't them taking those, really deep, kind of almost traumatizing sometimes experiences, and putting that all into them with the idea that somebody's going to get something out of it.
Well, I definitely agree with you that like extreme emotions,
Mm-hmm.
but not. I don't think necessarily. It's escaping me now, but like people with like joy or also frustration or
Mm-hmm.
like any type of like emotion that's at a level of like 85. You know, I feel like you kind of get
Yeah.
some good shit out of it.
Yeah. And it could just be something simple about leaves. I wrote a lot about leaves in one of my semesters for my manuscript.
Now, did you feel any type of emotion, or you just felt an attachment to leaves or the season?
I mean, well, I like leaves and I like the season as well, but I feel like I'm an over emotional person as it is. I cry at sunsets. I cry at commercials. It's bad.
I mean,
but it's just like I don't know.
You can thank the ASPCA for setting the bar for that one.
But no, there was definitely emotion there, whether it was just in a general sense about life and like its beauty, or just kind of things that it just brought me back for just a second. I don't know, as this leaf fell from a tree, what was the first thing that like came into my mind, or something like that. And sometimes it could just be writing a poem about your inner thoughts and what you were doing in that moment. Sometimes it could just be being so honed in on that leaf, and just describing it just in such a way. Because typically what I like to believe that, poets do is that they put this work out there for other people to be able to be in that moment with them and to be able to experience something. And sometimes it's because people have become so accustomed to and they become numb to something that, like, when you read like that piece of work that really touches that point in you, you're just like, and it almost feels like, and I understand that like people can't see me. So when I did that and I didn't finish the sentence, I was like, oh wait, I have to finish because they can't see me. You're just so taken aback by things like that, because it strikes something within you, and you're able to remember something, or you're able to relate to something. And so I feel like that's where a lot of that imagery comes in. It's just painting that picture for other people to be able to experience something and be along on that journey with you. So as long as you're truthful, you're honest, and somebody can get something out of it, then I feel like.
So it sounds.
Go ahead.
It sounds like there's a lot of vulnerability involved.
Yeah.
Which also means a lot of courage.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be pretty brave to be a poet. Something else that I kind of cued in on is sometimes it's hard to say the emotion that an image invokes in you, or why you get connected to it. Sometimes it's subconscious, and that's something I've always admired in poetry. Is I'm not as well versed in it. But I've always admired that ability of poetry. When you read a good poem with some good images, you feel something and you don't even know why.
Because you're a poet and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, and there's sometimes, like you said, just like kind of wondering why you feel like connected to something. Sometimes it hasn't even come for me like just from a poem. Sometimes it's before I write the poem, and then you hear something or you read something, you're just like, why in the world? Like, I found myself crying through, just blubbering through, just writing and scribbling in my notebook, and I couldn't really understand it at the time, why I felt as strongly as I did, but something came out of it, so hey.
So now, how would you describe your language in poetry? I know that's a very like vague question, but like just out of curiosity, like how you take it, because every time, from what I've learned in like trying to read as much poetry as I could, is that people interpret things very differently. So like the language that you convey could be taken that way, or it could be seen in a variety of different ways, or you could have a variety of different a variety of different topics within that one poem. So how, to you, or maybe you have one specific example in mind of how you tried to get your language out and what it sounded like to you.
Example. Like,
Sorry, I tried to keep talking to see if you
Yeah.
could have something pop in your head.
It's like, like I know the thing. I know what I. Like, I'd probably look. I still have the imposter syndrome, so I probably look at all of my stuff and go, nah.
Who wrote this?
Like, what?
Maybe another thing to consider is the language one has to use when writing poetry.
Yeah.
Is that a different kind of language than one would use just colloquially, or in their academic writing, or even in fiction or prose writing? Like, how is it different?
Yeah, definitely, I would say so. I think that when it comes to me, at least, I tend to get into this mode where I start to mesh things together that don't necessarily always go together in real life. Like the way that you would say something, you would take two words, and normally you probably wouldn't use them as one term, but in this case, you do. And so there's just a lot of, with me, I like fragments. I like things that feel a lot like staccato. And it's like, even though when I'm writing flowery, I feel a lot with like my musical background and stuff like that, like the way, at least the way that I'm reading it, it sounds musical to me. So I'm not sure if that makes sense to anybody else.
No,
but
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
you know?
that's really interesting.
It's like getting into, like, I call them nounjectives, when you say something like, his helicopter smile. Like,
yeah.
Like, those helicopter and smile don't go together unless you're, like, a really joyful helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
Like,
helicopter parent didn't go together until
yes,
this
that's true.
recent time.
Yeah. I really want to, like, look for, like, a stanza or something so I can read it to you. But even if we continue and I kind of come back at the end with something, I'm pretty sure I can scrounge something.
Well,
up.
I believe the only other question before we get to the end, I kind of touched on controversy, but just curious to see if you have any other, if there's any specific controversy that sticks out to you in terms of poetry. The one that I mentioned was the fact that a lot of people don't understand it, therefore they feel like they just don't get it or don't want to, or feel that really big distance between it. But I was wondering if you had realized or come across any other controversies that were big, either with you in poetry or that you've seen others experience.
Well, to stick with the one that you just brought up first, I will say that, it is a big one, and I don't think that anybody needs to necessarily classify themselves as an expert or anything, but in terms of feeling like you can't understand, and I feel like that's the thing with poetry sometimes, though, it's not always meant to be understood in one way, and I feel like there's a little bit of freedom within that to be able to read something and to be able to draw from it what you may, whether it be from your personal experiences that you can kind of connect with, or whether it's just because that sounded nice. So I do get what they mean when they say, it's like, well, I don't know what this is saying. Well, I don't, I think it also comes with not necessarily being like, expert level, like, so well versed, but reading other people and reading collections and kind of just like getting into the habit of, because it is kind of another world. So getting into the habit of reading that type of writing and that type of language, because it can be very, very different. You're not going to pick up a science fiction novel and find, the kind of language that you would find in poetry. But I would say there are definitely some more contemporary poets who are breaking down those barriers and breaking down, those bridges to be able to kind of say things as simple as possible. And it's something that everybody can relate to, and just something that anybody could connect with. So hopefully that controversy dies down and more people kind of become open-minded about it, more, willing to kind of venture out with it and kind of, be a little bit more accepting. It's definitely doesn't have to be as stressful or overwhelming as much, I feel like, as other other students or other classmates that I have because they've expressed that as well. It's just like, oh no, I can't do that. Like, I don't understand it, or what does that even mean?
What does
I
it
feel
mean,
like-
right?
Yeah, what does it mean? What is it supposed to mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean to you? And usually that's what most poets will say. Usually when you ask them about well, what does it mean to you? And it's just like whatever.
Answering a question
Yeah.
with a question.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like the poem that you just read. You know, it's the story you tell yourself. You give it the meaning.
Yeah.
All right.
Very
so,
interesting. Well, we did the interview. We did the teacher's corner. We just didn't sing it. We talked about the chips and
the salsa, of course.
the salsa con queso. Con queso, right?
Con queso.
Con queso? Yeah. Con queso. No, it's not the same.
No.
Okay.
Please no.
Dear God, no. Oh, God. Okay. So the last thing we have is the game.
Game time.
But I just thought of a new one. I'm
New
just
one,
going to
okay.
tell you, there's no pressure. You could just be like,
Okay.
absolutely not. I'm totally fine with that. But I was thinking in my head, what if we all came up with a haiku? Like maybe we could do it together or
Yeah.
not. Instead of a story. Because that's poetry.
I guess so.
All right,
Yeah.
cool.
I mean,
So what
like
is
if
it?
we do it together.
575,
yeah,
right?
together.
It's 575?
575, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
can we help each other out with the,
Yeah.
or is it like one?
Why don't we
word?
Well,
just-
maybe we should each do one line. Or
Okay.
do you want to do it one word at a time? This is
Hmm.
collaborative
Maybe
writing
harder.
right here that's
This
happening.
is,
Yeah.
This is another thing. It's a good thing.
All right, let's do one line. So 575. Oh,
Wait, I'm 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're giving you the extra work.
Okay.
Oh man.
It's all on me.
All right, so what's the theme, Richonda? Since you're the guest. Make it simple.
The theme can be. Is it simple enough to say? Nature.
Nature. All right. Well, you're gonna start us off, so you'll give us more of a specific theme, and then Catherine and I will follow along.
575, right?
Yep. Da 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 da.
Oh, I'm really bad at this.
All right, I'll start.
Okay.
I just raised my hand.
Okay.
It is cloudy outside.
Wild flowers sing in the breeze.
No, now I feel like I'm gonna like. I'm gonna have to run this back. I'm not good at thinking on my toes. Starting.
It is cloudy outside.
Wild flowers sing in the breeze.
The trees whistle. Starry night.
Wait, whistle's 2 syllables.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Yeah.
All by syllables. Mhm.
Syllables.
Yeah.
It is, right?
Cloudy outside.
Wildflowers whistle.
And
No, sing in the breeze.
Sing.
You were the
Swing.
one with whistle.
You say swing or sing?
No, sing.
Oh.
whistle. Ooh. I feel like that last word has to be pungent, like
Yeah. Well, what did you say?
the trees whistle.
The trees whistle. Ooh.
Life.
The
I like
trees
life better.
Whistle life.
I made a sound, and you made a real word.
Trees whistle.
Do you want to start one?
That was awful.
We'll
for
work our
me.
way out. Let's do salsa.
Salsa.
Salsa's the
haiku.
theme.
All right, I don't get the 7 syllables this time. Somebody else.
All right. All right, so let's go this way. Richonda, you start. I'll go second. Catherine, you go third.
Okay.
All right, you ready? Ah, so much pressure. I got to put these chips down. I need both my hands to think. Da-da-da-da-da.
I feel like my last 2 words are abstract.
That's cool. Tell us what you got.
Yellow cream, honey-like,
You're at 6.
yellow, cream. Oh, because honey. Why do I keep doing that? Just is so good. Yellow cream, so good.
Yellow cream, so good. Tangy flavors on my tongue.
Fresh Fiesta blood.
Holy shit! That took a turn!
Wow.
Yay!
No.
Oh, that was fantastic.
So I guess I told you something about my process.
It
Don't think well of my feet.
started cute with yellow and ended bold
Mhm.
with blood.
Bold like this salsa con
Uh-huh.
queso by Tostitos.
There it is. The camera, they're not going to see it. The camera.
I would have tried to find something
Oh,
like
man.
a sampler for you guys.
A
And
sampler.
like read something, but
If you want to, you can. Do you want to?
if I can find something.
Okay.
Let's go to it.
Well, we did everything else. Dave, get out of here. I forgot to turn the sound off, so now it's going to make that ding on the...
That's okay.
Sorry.
It's real.
It's authentic.
It's very real.
But, did you ever like poetry, Catherine, while we're waiting for Richonda?
When I was little, I did like poetry. Especially when I was in elementary school and middle school. I remember in middle school, I wrote this one poem. It was free verse, and it was about my dog looking out the window, but it was, like, way too deep for, like, how old I was, and I don't know, like, what it was, but my dad still, like, he superimposed it over a picture of the dog, and he framed it, and it embarrasses the daylights out of me now when I see it. But he's like,
Why?
no, that was a good poem. And whatever. It's embarrassing no matter what to look back at the writing you did in middle school.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Nobody can say otherwise unless I don't think anybody can say otherwise.
I used to like the challenge of rhyming.
Oh.
Like a lot of all the different kinds of rhyming poems, or just like kind of like free verse, but also with rhyming, like wherever I wanted to be because I didn't care. I just liked the challenge of like rhyming, and then also like making everything rhyme and matching the syllables up while telling an entire story. Like that was always my thing as a kid, and it was really hard. I remember like some poems would just come like 1, 2, 3, and then other ones where I like once I started matching up the syllables, it took forever.
And see, I normally don't rhyme. I can't, like, well, let's not say I can't. I can, but I can. But
You can.
I always feel like, for me, I guess that's where I would feel like I start to get trapped. So it's just like, oh no, because
Oh, it's definitely entrapment. I like stress, though. I like to put myself in stressful situations.
Wow.
So I have this stanza here of a poem.
Go for it.
I just like, it's kind of going back to what I said before, where it's just like, I just like the way that sounds.
Okay.
So it was a poem that I did talking about Rosa Parks. So it's simply just called Rosa. But I got to the end, and all of these are still in, their revision stages. None of these are finished. Absolutely, they have a lot of work to be done. So I go into this one stanza where I say, thank you for spurning ghost laws that shook the voices of your brothers and sisters still, as if to say, this is for the blacks with no top jobs, the street corner shoe shiners and chauffeurs, as if to say, this is for the starlight progeny, the warm water drinkers and victims of a vapid education. Rosa, you are splendor and a vile history. You are peace.
Wow.
I really like how you spread. There was one line where you used a whole bunch of S's.
The shoe shine.
Yeah,
one? Yeah.
and it was like
this
a really
is for the
good.
blacks with no top jobs, the street corner shoe shiners.
That was
and
it.
chauffeurs.
That's like an amazing alliteration.
It's like one
Very
of those
cool.
moments where you're just like, I like the way that sounds.
Yeah.
And
Me
so I
too.
put it together, and there it is.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing with us, and thank you so much for coming on our
Yeah,
show.
thank you, Richonda. This was
Again.
Very
great.
exciting. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Should we put a lid on it?
Let's put a lid on it. Here we go. All right, everybody.
There it is. Thanks
There
for
it
joining
is.
us for episode 2.
Woo!
Stay in tune. We have no idea what we're doing for 3, but we'll keep you posted on Twitter.
Yes, sirree.
Bye.
Bye-bye.